this was not going to be the video I was going to make this week, but having watched Bo Burnham's Inside on Netflix for the second time in a week, I decided I'd be remiss not to talk about it here, because for beginner filmmakers, for no budget filmmakers, this film is pretty important. Okay, so I can imagine what it is you're thinking right now. Come on, Paul, that's a comedy special. That's not a movie. And it's bound to have a big Netflix budget behind it too. To which you would be right. About the budget thing, I have no idea how much Inside would have cost. I mean, you look at it and you think it couldn't have really have cost that much other than the actual contract that Netflix has with Bo Burnham. But whether this is a movie or not, in 2021, when filmmakers are making more content on YouTube than any other place on the planet, I'm just not sure. You see, I think Bo Burnham's Inside is much more than just a comedy special made under the confinement of COVID lockdown. I think it might be one of the best examples of low to no budget filmmaking possibly ever made. And in this video, I'm going to argue why that's the case. Not only that, but given the nature of this channel and its audience, I also think that every filmmaker out there worried that they can't get anything made because they have no crew, no cast, no budget, needs to watch Bo Burnham's Inside because of the takeaways it offers for anyone out there that wants to express their creativity through film but is worried they don't have the resources to do it. So let's break it down. What makes Bo Burnham's Inside more than just a comedy special, but in fact a low to no budget movie masterpiece, and the lessons we, the no budget filmmakers of the world, can learn from its success. Number one, comedy specials don't normally use story arcs, but Bo Burnham's Inside does. It may look like a comedy special with no audience on the surface, but it actually has a story narrative running all the way through it. And that's Bo Burnham setting himself the goal of making this special with nothing but himself, a camera, his studio, and however long the process takes. The takeaway from this is, even if you've got nobody but yourself to film, make your story and the goal for your movie crystal clear from the very beginning, and it'll help to keep your audience engaged from the very first frame to the very last. Number two, comedy specials are usually live performances. Bo Burnham's Inside is not. It's clearly crafted over a long period of time through many, many takes. Who knows how many times Bo Burnham recorded parts of this? Even the most candid parts. We can't be entirely sure that those weren't somehow rehearsed and done over and over again. I know that makes me sound really heartless because some of that stuff seems really raw and quite emotionally real. But that might be taking credit away from the fact that Bo Burnham is an excellent performer. I guess we can't know unless he comments on it, if he chooses to. Which I hope he doesn't, because I quite like the idea that it's up to us to decide that. But the takeaway from this is, if you do have time and space to develop a project, then you should use that to its full potential. Don't be afraid to always do one more take if you think one more take is going to get you something you didn't have before. Number three, like many low to no budget movies, Bo Burnham's Inside is a one location film. And the challenge of any one location movie that's around 90 minutes long is how to keep your audience from becoming bored of seeing the same thing. But there are ways around this if you know what you're doing. For example, on a story point, the location of Inside is integral to the actual story. This is the room that he will make this comedy special in. Just him, the camera, and the room. Yes, I called it a comedy special there, but that's only because that's what his audience expects going into this. The audience thinks they're going to see something super familiar, but they end up seeing something entirely different, with notes of that familiarity in the fact that he is still telling jokes, doing bits, singing funny songs. I'd be super surprised if at some point during the production of Inside, Bo Burnham didn't realise that the pieces that he had in his house wasn't going to be enough to engage an audience for 90 minutes, and that actually what was required was more of a structure, a story structure, which is how this thing becomes a movie in the first place. At least that's what I imagine he thought. He's super talented. He definitely did. On a directional note, the room is like a canvas, and with every bit, every song, every segment that sits in between, he's using light, he's using sound, he's using colour to change the mood and the feel of that one single location. in order to keep us interested and make us wonder, how is he going to paint the next frame? So the takeaway from this is a single location doesn't have to be boring. It's a canvas, and you should use your creativity to change that location up, whether that be through a camera angle or the way it's lit or the way you colour the screen, in order to create something that keeps the audience engaged. Number 4, equipment. It's all low to no budget gear. There is some expensive equipment on show here, but it's not Hollywood expensive. It's a decent lens on a decent DSLR with some fairly decent lights. Apart from the spotlight that he's using, I think most of that equipment is stuff that any self-shooting filmmaker probably already has in their lockup, or failing that, knows another filmmaker who can lend them most of that equipment, or be able to rent it at short notice. I mean, the LEDs that he's using in shot just to create certain effects, there are versions of those lights available on Amazon for nothing more than $50. But you could also go a little bit cheaper on the gear there. You could use starter gear and still end up with a very similar finish. And when you look at the actual production quality, you'll realise that most of that quality comes from on-set production as opposed to the technology behind the lens. Which again goes to prove that you don't need very expensive equipment to make something that's game-changing, because I really honestly believe that's what this film is. You just need good story and good content in this case, and creative visuals to make something really engaging. So this kind of project is not out of reach of any of us. What does set it above most movies is the talent of the person on the screen. But that's not to say any of us can't or don't have the same amount of talent, but it's how that talent is channeled. It just takes a whole lot of blood, sweat, and in Bo Burnham's case, thousands of hours of musical practice and comedy timing. And finally, number 5, it takes risk, it takes honesty, and it takes being brave enough to put yourself out there. Throughout the whole of lockdown, there hasn't been another comedian, well, as yet, who have released any material that looks anything like Bo Burnham's Inside. And I don't imagine that anything else will look like it. And I think that's because it takes a huge creative risk in saying, I can't make a special without an audience. And so I'm going to take that material and do something completely different with it, something that hasn't been attempted before, and in lesser hands, with someone maybe with less commitment, or perhaps just more scared of the outcome of all their time and effort. That might not have paid off, but in this case, it doesn't just pay off, it becomes something entirely unique. Told in the confines of one location, it mixes what is entertainment with what is real. It's part documentary, part vlog, part musical, but most importantly, because of the risks it takes, it's wholly original, and to my mind, it's one of the most interesting and unique pieces of filmmaking I've seen in a very, very long time. And what makes that even more exciting is that all of the bits and pieces and equipment and things that go into making Bo Burnham's Inside are all within the reach of any low to no budget filmmaker. But, and this is a word of caution, don't try and copy it. Originality comes from the struggle of taking risks. Imagine Bo Burnham started this project listing the things that he had and the things that he wanted to achieve, and got rid of all the things that he couldn't do within that process, because those things were no good to him. I suggest you make a list that's similar to that. What do you have? What do you want to achieve? How can you bridge the gap between the two with your own creativity? That's the big takeaway from Bo Burnham's Inside. What do you have right now to make a movie with? What equipment? What talents? What space or location? Given enough time, could you create something as engaging as Bo Burnham's Inside? I believe the answer is always yes. You just have to put in the work. And here's a quick couple of observations and thoughts I had on Bo Burnham's Inside that I wanted to share. Firstly, I really like how it's broken up into two parts, and that the first part is kind of lighter and the second part is much darker, and that's chopped in the middle by Bo going to sleep, and then everything at night appears to be darker, and that peaks with Get Your Hands Up, and then he wakes up and reviews that as if it was something that he didn't know was going on whilst he was asleep, and that's when he decides that the project's over. Also, did the ending remind anyone else of the ending to John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, a film in which Sam Neill is locked inside a cell for a big part of that film, and then suddenly finds that his cell door is open and he can go back into the outside world, only the outside world is chaos. And when he goes into a theatre to watch a movie, the movie ends up looking at is the movie of his own life, and that none of it is real. It's all just a story. And having seen that, he starts laughing insanely. And I think that's kind of what Bo Burnham is doing with the ending of Inside. Just some thoughts. If you have any, please put them in the comments below. If you're looking for more tips and tricks on how to make a low to no budget movie from that first great idea all the way through to shooting, cutting and distributing your film, click on one of the 2 videos on your screen now. I'm in both of those. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching, filmmaker.